What's up, everybody? We are looking at the top 5 players in every team's history, and today it's the Miami Dolphins, the winners of 2 Super Bowls and one of the best teams ever. If you look at the early 70s team, I promise you there'll be a couple of guys from that team on the list. But we're starting number 5 with a relatively recent Dolphin.
Johnson back to throw. Intercepted by Jason Taylor.
Shocked? You shouldn't be. Jason Taylor became the 3rd Dolphin to be Defensive Player of the Year in 2006, following Doug Betters and safety extraordinaire Dick Anderson. Anderson, by the way, is one of the guys Taylor beat out for this list. A tall, slender defensive end, Taylor played like a beast, racking up 131 sacks in a Miami uniform. Number 4, Larry Little. The former All-Pro guard might have been the best player at his position on the Dolphins' 2 Super Bowl teams. Little was a dominant player, a first-team All-Pro during the team's Lombardi run in the early 70s. Little wore the Dolphins uni for 12 seasons, which also pushed him over the likes of Dwight Stevenson. Number 3, Bob Griese. 2 years before Little arrived in Miami, the Dolphins got their franchise quarterback in Griese. The former Purdue Boilermaker would start for Miami for the better part of 14 seasons. He started 3 Super Bowls while leading the league in passing in 1977. The guy who many thought of as being a handoff specialist actually threw 5 touchdowns in the game that same season and was one of the most accurate passers of the 70s as a whole. Number 2, Larry Csonka. Now this choice was darn easy. And if Larry heard me say something as nerdy as darn easy, he'd probably plow me over like right now.
It's Csonka straight up the middle, and he's got the touchdown.
Csonka is one of the top power backs in pro football history, behind perhaps only Jim Brown and John Riggins. The closest clone, you could say, to Csonka in today's game would be the recently retired Marshawn Lynch. Csonka rushed for 1,000 yards 4 straight years in the early 70s, in 14-game seasons. All right, number 1. All right, give me a break. Is there any doubt about this? I mean, really? Really? How about Dan Marino? I mean, Marino retired with pretty much every NFL record on his resume.
Dan Marino has now thrown for more yards than anyone else in the history of the National Football League.
These weren't Dolphins team records. These were NFL passing records when he hung it up after the 1999 season. His 84 campaign is still the best offensive season I've ever seen. 5,000 yards. That's right, 5,000 yards in 1984 with the way the defensive backs could play back then. That yardage total wouldn't be matched for 24 years. The guy might never have won a Super Bowl. But for people who were watching football in the 80s and early 90s, there was no question who the best quarterback outside of Joe Montana was. And it wasn't Elway, it wasn't Troy Aikman, and it wasn't Steve Young. It's Dan Marino, your greatest Dolphin of all time.